I want to talk about the HDMI controller on the PlayStation 5 Pro
Mm,
because,
hmm
John, there's problems with the HDMI controller on the base PlayStation 5, 32 gigabits per second bandwidth, which basically means that you can't get 120 hertz output at 444 or RGB, right? It's Chroma subsampling down to 422, right?
That's correct. And yeah, for those unclear with chromic subsampling, you're essentially processing the different colors at a different resolution. So you lose some fidelity. It's actually very difficult to spot during normal games. It's most obvious if you load up something like a very fine per pixel image, like a computer desktop or small text with a lot of detail in it. Then you can actually see some of that fringing and a little bit of noise and artifacting around things. We had hoped that the PS5 Pro would essentially conquer this because, as we know, it now supports 8K output, which you'll get to in a moment there, Rich.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the 4K 120 mode is still limited to 422.
Yeah.
So even if there have been changes made, it does not address this fundamental limitation, and we're still limited to 32 gigabits per second, it seems,
It
as a
seems.
result, when in 120 hertz mode.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? 8K output requires essentially twice the bandwidth of 4K at 120 hertz. So the display controller has got to be upgraded, right? That's just pure logic. So we kind of think it is, but not in the way you might expect. So we've got capture here of a PS5 Pro attached to an 8K screen. Now, looking at the signal types supported, we've got 8K there or 4320p. But looking at 4K, 120 hertz is still limited to 422. So now connecting the Pro to my 8K capture card, the Pro isn't having it. The menus say I need both 60 hertz support, which I have got, but also DSC, which my capture card hasn't got. DSC is display stream compression. So theory crafting time here, but I think Sony has added compression support to the display controller, but it's likely still limited to 32 gigabits per second of bandwidth. I guess the good thing is that display stream compression is lossless, to the best of my knowledge, so there's no loss of quality. And actually, on an 8K supported screen, you will get full resolution 8K RGB support at 60 hertz with HDR. But as there are no capture devices I'm aware of right now that support DSC, we can't show you 8K at the moment. That was the problem we had when we went to visit Codemasters for the F1 opportunity a few weeks back, which is quite interesting. 8K, John, still not interested, right?
Not currently. I mean, I think what that fundamentally means is that everything's going to be scaled, barring
Yes.
these few random examples. And I'm not into that. Even with a pixel density like that, which would help a lot, you're still going to be relying on upscaling, which introduces some additional blur to the final output unless you do a nearest neighbor scale. And I also don't want any additional processing on top of that. And like you
Uh-huh.
said, there are fewer 8K displays now than there were in 2020, I would say.
How
We've
do you work
seen,
that out?
well, at least from certain lineups. For instance, LG used to offer more 8K displays, right? They've kind of rolled
Right.
that back. They
Hmm.
had these top end 8K OLEDs even, and there's just less of this stuff now. Uh, Basically, if you go to your local display store and browse around, you'll find that where once there was many 8K screens on display in sort of a showcase fashion, there's now just 4K larger screens. They're pushing up towards 100 inches and beyond now, which is interesting. But
Yeah.
I think it's just we've realized that 8K, it's just at the moment a bridge too far in terms of delivering
Yeah.
content, right?
Hmm.
Also, I mean, I think from Sony's perspective, even though they're shipping an 8K console, the world's first 8K console, in fact, which you'd think would be a point of some marketing triumphalism,
Or at least
first
a
8K
label on the
console.
box.
Right.
Well, exactly. They don't have a label on the box, so they don't really seem to want to tell people it's an 8K console. Maybe they're worried that people with 4K displays will think, oh, this isn't the console for me or something. But just to speak to John's point, I think Samsung is the only TV manufacturer that is now shipping 8K panels every
Yeah,
single year.
I think you're right.
Other manufacturers, like, the top end
Mm.
LGs, the top end Sonys, they're all, whether you're talking about LCDs, whether you're talking about OLEDs, they're all 4K sets this year in 2024. I think they were all 4K sets as well in 2023. So it really, you'd have to go back a couple of years to find like 8K Sonys, 8K LGs. And like for my purposes, yeah, they are getting cheaper, but like I looked at the QN900D, which is an 8K version of the QN90D that I have back there. I was considering buying it, possibly, when I got that panel, but it costs more than 3 times as much as the QN90D in the same size. And also, the panel is worse in some respects. It only does 1400 nits peak brightness, not 2100 nits as my QN90D. So for my eyes, my light-loving eyes, 2100 is a lot better than 1400. So for sure, for me, it's like, well, you spend 3 times as much. Most of the time, you're getting probably a worse image because it's scaled, and you're getting a worse panel possibly as well. So it just seems like kind of a raw deal.
And frankly, at that pixel density, unless you're way over 100 inches, I feel like the difference is extremely difficult to appreciate.
Your eye can't really resolve it too well.
In a PC situation, more so because you sit very close, but watching a TV from even a close viewing distance, your eye can't resolve that detail.
Yeah.
Which is perhaps the point. It's like the whole retina display concept, right? This whole thing of like, there's so many pixels that you can no longer distinguish the pixels is what they're going for. Yeah. But still. Not really.
I've said it before, but to me, 8K basically represents really good anti-aliasing as opposed to, a massive boost to core image quality. It's good anti-aliasing when viewed at a distance. I did see the F1 game playing out at 8K, and it's fine on static menus and stuff, and it's fine in game when the movement isn't really a thing, but in motion, there is breakup because it is, a TAAU upscale from 4K. It's a technical curiosity. It's a nice to have, but it's not a defining feature of the professional, I don't think.